Welcome to Creative Block. We're your host, Gene.
And V, we interview people in the animation industry about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Worthikids.
Hello.
Whoa!
Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful here.
I tried to channel sort of that like kind of lip smacky thing that a lot of your characters tend to have. The very like...
I've been told that they're sweaty and lethargic. I've been told.
That's a good way to... Yeah. You got...
I love that,
There's a
though.
recurring... Yeah. It's the Palpatine like...
Yeah.
Sweaty and lethargic. You are... I'll say it. You are a legendary Flash. Not Flash. I shouldn't say Flash. But you're a legendary indie animator.
Thank you.
And that's actually a good question. You've been using Blender a lot lately, right?
Yes.
What was your 2D animation program of choice before?
Before that, I used, I think it was CS6. I had an old version where I didn't need the subscription. Like,
That's
I got
good.
it before the subscription, or my dad got it. But
Yeah.
And I had that lying around. And eventually, I was, I think it was when Blender introduced the grease pencil. I was like, great, I can switch over. Although even then, I wouldn't like put the shots together in Flash. I would animate it without the background, export it as an image sequence, and then put that in Blender so I could put it over the background. Because I did some 3D stuff in like Pepe Sylvia,
Yeah.
and I wanted. So I was still using Blender even back then, just for compositing. And then once they put the grease pencil in, I switched over completely, and I dropped Flash.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to come back to Adobe Animate for a job that needed me to use it. And I was so disappointed. I'm like, I won't get into it. I could rag on Flash for 30 years. I don't like it.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. I think we lost Adobe sponsorship because I was talking so much shit on Adobe. I'm not kidding. Well, okay, I think it's been long enough now that we can talk about that because yeah, they kind of reached out to us at one point and then they were like, we'd love for you to do some streaming on our platform, and I was like, sure. Are you sure you've watched the show? And then I think, and then they ghosted us after like one email because I think they realized my first episode, I was like, "Fuck Flash, fucking hate it," and it's so yeah. But anyway, yeah, your pipeline is really interesting, and I think it's clearly helped you create this output, this insane output of just like
Yes.
just making stuff.
I owe a lot of that to Blender for sure. Blender really lets you move very quickly.
Yeah, people seem to really, I think everyone's really jealous, and maybe jealous isn't the right word, but definitely everyone in the animation industry, I think admires how you've used these tools to create these shortcuts and like just produce content. And clearly there's been, what I admire personally is that you've been trying things out in pieces. So it's like, you know, early on, like you said, in the Pepe Sylvia short, there was a little bit of 3D, and then there was a little more, and then you did those like Rankin Bass style things, and now your most recent post was the Captain Yajima short, and like, dude, like you, it looks like a stop motion cartoon, like it's amazing,
Thank you.
and it's a full, essentially pilot, which is ridiculous.
It is. It's my longest one yet. If you don't count Big Top as one animation, which I don't, because I made it in parts.
Yeah, it's broken up into pieces. Yeah, but that's still amazing. Let's take it back a little bit. Tell us about Little Worthy and how you got your start. Worthy Kid.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing about the username is it originally didn't refer to me. It referred to me and all my siblings because I have 3 siblings.
Oh,
And
okay.
we were the Worthy Kids because our last name's Worthington.
Mm-hmm.
And our dad came up with the name, but it was a username we used on, I think, Yo-Yo Games, which people won't. It's a game maker's old defunct website where you upload your games. It's gone now, but and so I was Worthy Kid number 1. I was always Worthy Kid number 1 for years and years and years. But I was the main one using the account to interact with people. I'd be like, you know, hi there, whatever. This was when I was like 9 or something, maybe a little older. And then I was asked to like join an anime forum. I remember that, and I joined that, and I still call myself Worthy Kid number 1. And then I was asked to join DeviantArt, or a friend was like, you should join DeviantArt. I joined DeviantArt, and I was still Worthy Kid number 1. And then I think it was when I switched this again. I'm the only person running this account, and I'm uploading my own art, but I'm calling myself Worthikid #1. I think it was when I switched to Tumblr, where I was like, I'm Worthy. Everyone keeps calling me Worthy. I feel like I'm just Worthikids now. I've stolen the name. Sorry, siblings.
Yeah. they have been rejected.
I took it over.
Have you guys ever had any beef over the username?
I don't think so. They don't seem to care, but
Do they? Are they artistic at all?
they are. I was gonna say when I spent a lot of time drawing as a kid because me and my siblings were homeschooled, and so we were just at home all the time with 8.5 by 11 paper and pencils, and just drawing. And they're all very good artists, and they influenced me quite a bit. Although they draw a lot less in adulthood, kind of went different ways, to different degrees. I'm kind of mostly the only one who's kind of still drawing as a career, but
Yeah.
How long were you homeschooled?
my whole childhood.
I was gonna ask, because this is super interesting since we haven't had yet a guest who was homeschooled. So
Really?
yeah.
Well, I'm also left-handed. Am I the first left-handed guest? I guess that doesn't come up.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
We should have asked.
We should ask every guest. Let's go back and ask all the guests.
Yeah.
We'll find out. Take a tally. That is interesting. Yeah, talk about that if you don't mind.
Being left-handed?
Yeah, talk about no the homeschool and because I'm not homeschooled. I don't know many people who were, and I wonder if it helped you with sort of working a lot on your own stuff and kind of developing that artistic expression.
I think it did help with that. I don't necessarily recommend it because I'm not. It made me very antisocial. It took years to become even vaguely social.
Yeah.
I mean, as you can imagine, you're at home all the time. You don't interact with other people. I don't think it's good for your brain, but it's good for artistic development, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was going to ask you, were you ever doing anything extracurricular classes or anything that would be kind of I don't know, art classes or I don't know, sports or.
I think I took soccer as a kid, but I didn't actually do it. I would just put my head in my shirt and run around, and everyone would yell at me because I wasn't doing it right. Because I was very bad at it.
That's not how you play soccer. That's how I play soccer.
Yeah, I think it's the new experimental soccer.
Yeah.
I did take an art class. I went to college for 2 semesters. I didn't graduate or anything, but I took beginner and then intermediate art classes. Mm-hmm. And that was, there was no digital. That was all just drawing from life and stuff. And I enjoyed that, and I think there's a lot of merit to foundational skills, but I don't think it really affected my career a ton or anything.
Sure. Yeah, I've kind of heard that homeschooling ends up kind of hurting the social aspects.
What college did you go to for those classes?
That was when my family lived in Alaska, so it was in Anchorage. It was, I forget what it's called, but it's the one Anchorage college.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, that's really interesting that it sounds like you've been moving around a lot throughout your life.
My parents moved basically every 5 years.
Whoa.
Throughout my whole childhood. Not on purpose. It just happened every 5 years. Dad's job would change or he would get a different job offer and we had to move.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the homeschooling maybe made that a little bit easier? Because I feel like when you're in a school system, it's you're like, shit, I gotta drop this whole life.
Yes, I think that it wasn't very hard because all my friends were my siblings and they came with me. So
Sure. Yeah, you have a little built-in unit. That's great. There's a bond that probably forms for sure. So then, so you went to college for a little bit, and I assume it just wasn't your thing.
What happened? It was funny. I signed up for the advanced art class, the third one, because it was a 3-semester thing, and then it was me and my oldest brother. And when we got there, none of the people from the first 2, semesters were there because it was a unit of this group of people, and they weren't there, and we're okay, never mind. Because that was part of the fun. It was we were getting to know these people, and then the whole class changed. I don't know why. That was weird, but
yeah,
so we kind of stopped going.
Is there anything that you kind of gained from that experience going forward, or was it just kind of a wash?
I really hope I would have gotten into life drawing anyway, but I worry I might not have. And I think it's one of the most valuable art skills like ever. And that class made you do it. That, you know, they had like models and stuff, and you had to do the like 30-second one, which I'd never done before. The, you know, like
the gestures,
the quick stuff, the gestures, and those were like, they're still grueling. It's like the most grueling study to do. I feel like it's so, especially if you do them back to back. It's, you know,
it's a lot.
But you learn so much. I love them a lot.
I agree. I feel like the because like I went to like a couple different like life drawing classes, and I've always felt like the moment that I learned the most were any poses that were under 5 minutes. Anything that's more than 5 minutes, like even 10 or 20, it's like at that point you're just kind of practicing rendering more than you're actually practicing drawing.
It's a lot of like shading and stuff. I don't know.
Right.
I feel like the quick gestures are the most valuable ones.
Yeah, it gets the like the motion. It gets like the feeling of the pose, and you don't dwell on the little things.
Growing up, were you kind of so you were talking about your username. Did you spend a lot of time on internet communities? Like you were talking about DeviantArt like a little bit.
I did. That was in my like tweens and early teens, or I guess mid-teens is when I started kind of existing online. I didn't really go online much before that. I think I was like 15, and I made friends on DeviantArt, and I was on there I think for a year before I moved to Tumblr, and then I made a lot of friends on Tumblr, mainly through Homestuck. I was really into Homestuck.
Interesting. Okay. And so that Tumblr was kind of the first place where you feel like you built up like a fan base and a community? Yes,
all from Homestuck, because I was drawing a lot of Homestuck fan art. My like original fan base was just other Homestuck fans.
Yeah. And I was into Homestuck for a bit. I think I got up to like the trolls. It's funny because like I feel like I read a shitload of it, and then I'm like, yeah, I got to the part with like the trolls, and people were like, oh, so you got like a quarter of the way through, and I'm like, yeah, so I guess I haven't gotten that far. It's so long.
I feel like I'm gonna read it one day. I will, and then I go on the first page, and I read 2 slides, and then I'm like. Well, time to, I don't know. I
wouldn't necessarily recommend it to people, especially now. I feel like it was an of the moment thing. Like in that moment, it was valuable to read it and kind of be there with it and be in the fandom. But like, it's still good. It's just like, it's so long. I don't know why people want to read it. It's so long.
Yeah.
Just because it's like so big, right? It's like, that's kind of like the thing. It's like, wow, it's such a, like, it feels like a monument of the internet, kind of.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely like of the moment, and I tried reading it recently. I like booted it up, and I was like, all right, here we go, John Egbert. And I don't know, yeah, I think there's something about the energy of when it was coming out that it's not the same. I think it's just not the same. But it was really impressive. That hussy knows
E-boy Hussy, as he calls
E-boy Hussy. And I mean, it's spawned so much too. Like, I mean, even something like Undertale, you know, it like came from that scene as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were a part of that. That's interesting, because it's to me, it just seems like you suddenly emerged out of nowhere, and you like already had a lot of kind of attention on what you were doing. And part of that is just because like your early shorts were really funny, but it makes sense that you were already kind of growing that interest on a different platform.
Little fun fact, all my really early shorts are not available. They're unlisted.
Oh, okay.
Because they were Homestuck animations, and I don't think they're very good. They're not, like, terrible. I have an idea that, like, if I ever hit, like, 1 million subscribers on YouTube, I might do a video that's, like, watching my unlisted old shorts and like explaining why I unlisted them.
Oh, I think that'd be great.
Oh yeah.
I think people would. They're just you know, they're all done in Flash. I don't think they're very well animated, and I'm just like, this is embarrassing. I don't want these on my channel.
I get that.
Is it just because like tone or the art?
I did a lot of the voice acting, and I was like a teen, and it's just like bad teen voice acting.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit before, just you and I. Like you're very particular about what you want to put on your channel too, which I think is cool. Like you're curating it.
It's true. I even unlisted stuff recently, like not that old stuff. I think I had a video essay about another YouTube show I really liked, and I was just like, that was cool at the time, but it's like,
Oh,
I don't know. I want people to look at the channel and be like, these are the animations. This is the body of work, and not just like my old random videos that I used to have.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of got you into doing the, like, taking an audio out of something and animating it? Was that inspired by something?
I wonder, I'd have to try and remember what my first one of those was. It was probably the Eric Andre one, which is still on my channel. It's now the oldest video on my channel. Or it looks like it is if you go to the one. It's what's the clip? Kuwait Grips.
Yeah,
I'm in a new band called Kuwait Grips. Yeah. I think that was the first like reanimation I did of an audio clip.
Yeah. Hell yeah, sleigh bells.
Yeah.
I think your clips got me more into Eric Andre. It's like I needed that context to get it. And now I'm like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, Hannibal. Like, I mean, Hannibal, it's questionable now, but
I remember at the time Eric Andre is always huge on different parts of the internet, but like on Tumblr at that time, all my friends were always sharing his clips, and it was just like it was just like everybody knew it, and I was like, okay, I want to do a fan animation of this, and I really like this clip.
Yeah. I gotta draw Steve Brule here. Steve Brule's fucking...
Yeah, put a Brule on.
Steve Brule is just a delight to draw. But yeah, I think it was really cool to see how much you were experimenting with the medium even then. And your style, you have such a specific style of drawing. And I wonder if you can trace sort of where that comes from. Like, what kind of stuff did you really like growing up? And like, what do you feel like influenced that very, very worthy style of drawing?
I would say it's a lot of SpongeBob mixed with like certain anime, like One Piece, a lot of One Piece.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I was like obsessed with One Piece as a teen. I did a lot of fan
art. Oh, wow.
And Naruto, but I was a bigger fan of One Piece. And I say my sense of humor is very influenced by Bobo.
Oh,
I love.
Oh boy, finally V can.
Oh my god, like Gene has been dunking on me because he's like, yeah, Bobo's not that funny. I'm like, it's the funniest thing.
I don't get it.
I cry. Like, I don't often like cry laughing, like have actual tears, but Bobo will actually make me like. I read the manga. Did you read the manga or mostly watch?
I mostly watch anime, and I read the manga a little, and I think it's a little funnier than the anime. I mean, it's like when you read something, you can kind of put your own voice on it, but
right, exactly. I don't know. I feel like also because there's so much going on every single second that like reading the manga is easier because it's like every single word is a joke almost. So it's like packed. Oh my gosh, I am so happy. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. This is what V's been waiting for.
Yes, Bo.
33 episodes.
It's very One Piece in the way. Like I feel like One Piece is like the version is kind of like the humor is like Bo, but it's made into a story that is understandable.
Yes, I think One Piece also influenced my humor a lot because One Piece is very funny. Oda has an amazing sense of humor.
He does. Yeah. I read through all of One Piece over the last, I guess, couple of years. Shit, but
speaking of Homestuck,
speaking of long, it's like, and it, I took breaks here, and I would like read through an arc and then read something else. But yeah, it's amazing. Both of them pack in so much detail. Both Homestuck and One Piece, like it's so much detail and care for the characters and creating this like really tight linear narrative. Would you ever want to do something like that? Would you ever want to do a long form thing?
I have an idea. I won't get into it too much, but I have a kind of, I think of it as like this would be my one big long thing. But
yeah, do you just feel like you're not ready for that yet?
I've got too many other things happening. It's my whole schedule was completely and utterly packed. Like there's no time to do anything.
Yeah. So talk about that if you don't mind. Like you obviously have a ton of ideas. Are you kind of structuring out like a schedule for yourself for the year? Like, do you have ideas that you want to work on and you're just prioritizing them?
Yes. Almost the whole rest of the year is planned out with shorts and like when I start working on them.
That's amazing. Yeah, we definitely wanted to ask about like time management and just like, because this is your job, right? Like you're
Yes.
just doing this full time. That's amazing. I think that's really hard to pull off.
It took a while. I mean, it took years for it to like
Definitely.
the snowball to get rolling.
Yeah.
How would you describe kind of like that timeline? How like did you? And we actually have a question like this that said I might not find it. I'll just say who asked it later. But did you always kind of know you wanted to go indie, or did it just kind of like unravel in this way?
I don't think I always knew. I think early on with the reanimations, I was just like, this is just something I'm doing for fun. It would be cool if I could just make these reanimations, but that's impossible on YouTube. You know, the ad revenue would never work. And so I was like, I'll probably try and get like an industry job at some point. And then there was a turning point. I think I started meeting other indie animators who were making it work on YouTube, and my videos started getting more successful, and I think it was like this could work. There was like a turning point. I think it was around like Witches on Tinder, where I was like, hold on.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
There could be momentum here. I might be able to pull this off.
I remember Witches on Tinder is definitely the first video I saw of yours. I was like, whoa, this is cool. Where did this come from? And then I like watched your whole channel.
I think it was my first like truly original one, because I'd done one or two with original audio, like the Frasier one, but of course that's a Frasier joke.
Yeah.
While the Witches one is more general.
I see. Yeah, I guess that is, huh? Yeah. What did you have a plan for like that snowball that you talked about, where it's like, were you originally kind of doing stuff that was referencing other things as a way to kind of attract attention a little bit, or is it just the stuff you happen to be doing?
It was. I'm not that good at planning. All those reanimations I did, completely just for fun.
Yeah.
And the only reason I wasn't doing original stuff is because I was kind of a chicken. I was just like, the reanimations are fun, they're easy, and I kind of know that people like them, and I don't know if people would like original stuff. I don't want to embarrass myself, you know. And so Witches on Tinder was kind of a big risk for me, or I felt like it was a risk. And then when it did well, I was like, oh wow, maybe I'll do more original stuff.
It's tough. I think, yeah, I mean, and YouTube isn't kind to indie animation either. Like
it's not.
It favors long form content, and the algorithm sucks ass, and so I totally get why it would be scary to do your own thing. It's a lot.
Yeah, and I hadn't done like voice. I mean, I keep thinking like, oh, I hadn't done voice acting in years, but like that one Frasier animation is like, it stands out because it's like the one I randomly did where it was original audio out of nowhere, and then I did a bunch of reanimations after it. But I was still like, you know, it was an original script and stuff, and I was just kind of nervous about putting it out there. But the thing was, I think if people are wondering like, why haven't I done more reanimation since then, if I enjoy them so much. And the thing is, once you start doing original stuff, it's so addictive. Like, I cannot stop. Like, it's just like, anytime I have an idea of like, oh, I could do a reanimation of that, I'm like, or I can make an original skit that's like vaguely similar to that. It's like, ooh, that's way more fun.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
I totally understand that. I feel like, I feel like it when you do work from like an existing IP, it's kind of like there's like also a little bit of fun in terms of like, oh, like a lot of stuff has been already figured out, but the reward of like having an original piece perform well is, I don't know, it's really rewarding.
It is. It truly is. And being able to do the audio, I really latched on to doing the sound design. The music became like a huge part of the process. Like I couldn't live without doing that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, how did you study music, or like how was kind of like your path into doing original music?
Oddly, it was through DeviantArt.
Everything comes back to DeviantArt.
It does for some reason. Our dad had just like got a MIDI keyboard and like a copy of this program called Cakewalk. It's a music making program. He got it. I remember, yeah. But it was like, you know, we were allowed to use it, and I didn't really touch it because I was like, I can't really play piano. But I got a meme on DeviantArt, like a journal meme they called them, and it was like an older version of the idea of a meme, where it was, you know, more like I tag this person, now you have to fill it out. That kind of meme, as opposed to like, like a joke meme.
Yeah.
And the meme was like, go to Wikipedia and click random article. That's now the name of your band. Now click random article again. That's your album. Then click it 10 more times. Those are your songs. And I did that. And I got this like stupid band name and a bunch of songs. And I was like, this is so fun. I should make these real songs as a joke.
Why not?
And so I tried to make them in Cakewalk. And I can't play piano, so I did a lot of sequencing and just like very simple synths. And I think I made every song on that album. And they used to be on my channel, all unlisted now. And I think that just got my foot in the door. I was like, okay, I've now started experimenting with this. That would have been, I think I was like 15. And then I kept playing with it a little, doing music stuff. I did a lot of fan songs on when I was on Tumblr. And then I got a guitar for one of my birthdays, and then I started playing guitar, and that's where I think I was hooked.
Mm-hmm. I think something that's really cool about you and your like work ethic, I guess, but it's like you just follow the fun and what you do, and it shows. Like that's such a good thing for I think people to keep in mind that are trying to start out or trying to make stuff. That it's just like just do what's like fun for you, and it'll be easy, and so you'll want to do more. Like you were saying with the reanimation stuff, it's like that's why you put out so much, just because it was fun for you, right?
It's true. I see my animations as almost like quite selfish in some ways, because they're based around what I want to do and like how fun things I want to do. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of Captain Yajima was like, I want to make a 70s inspired soundtrack with like synths and like the wah wah guitar, but like I don't want to just do that by itself with no impetus, no reason to do it. So if I had a short, I mean there were a bunch of other reasons that made that short, but like all of them were like stuff of me going, I want to do this fun thing, I need a reason to do it, I need a format to do it in.
Do you think that you just sort of strive to like learn? Like is that something that you feel like is a part of you?
I do like to learn kind of new stuff, usually like music stuff. Like I'm trying to learn new instruments and stuff.
Yeah, it just seems like a recurring thing where a lot of your creative choices seem to be kind of led by a desire to like learn how to do a thing or a style or whatever. And I think that's cool. It's an interesting way to approach it. Because like with, it seems like for a while you were learning Blender, you were kind of like trying to figure out how to do like a stop motion thing. And now you've become incorporating music into a lot of your work, which is great. And it all really works together.
I was kind of wondering, so I wanted to think kind of like chronological order, kind of like your introduction to the different art communities and kind of like how you started making animation. So you said that you started doing animation by making all these like little shorts inspired by Homestuck. And then you started doing the shorts based on audio that like your friends like really connected with. And when would you say did you start uploading things to YouTube?
From the very start. I mean, like the Homestuck shorts were the first things I put up there. Well, okay. The first thing I put on YouTube was a trailer for an anime fighting game me and my brother made called Papa Rocks. It's named after the Bobobo character Papa Rocks. He's called Don Patch in the anime, and it was a trailer set to one of those like epic songs that were huge, like the epic trailer songs. I forget what they're called, like Europa or something like that. They were by this specific artist who only made epic trailer music, which is like all the rage in 2009. And it was like set to one of those songs. It was just footage from the game we made. And I think that was one of the first things I put on YouTube.
And what year was that?
That was like 2010.
2010, okay. Wait, hold on. You're very young, aren't you?
Yes, I'm turning 25 in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
That's amazing.
So I mean, you've been obviously working on stuff since your teens.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that there's so many resources out there now to just start early. And that's great. And communities too. Like you were saying, like you started in the Homestuck community, and that it's nice to have that anchor, I think, would you say? Like having something that you can kind of build on top of?
100%. I mean, I owe a lot to Homestuck, and I mean, I was obsessed with it, but so was everybody else around me. So it was like we all just kind of got to know each other through our obsession. I drew more fan art of Homestuck than I've drawn of anything else ever. Like it was hundreds and hundreds of drawings.
Mm-hmm. How do you prioritize the projects that you work on? Is there some kind of logic that you're following, or is it just like your gut feeling?
It's a lot of it is what audio's ready at this point, because I focus a lot on, I mean, most of my shorts at this point have other voice actors in them as opposed to just me. And so it's like, is this person available to record? I try to record stuff in advance, but at the same time, I do like the momentum of, okay, I just got all these things recorded. Now let's assemble the audio, let's do the boards, let's move.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Let's talk about your pipeline a little bit, because you have all these different moving pieces, because you're basically a producer at this point. Like, you're also the artist, but you're writing and you're contacting all these different like artists or like voice actors to work for you. So that's pretty much producing. And so let's kind of take it to like, you just had an idea or like something fun that you want to do. Kind of what's like the next step for you?
The first step is always concept art, because I need to know what the characters look like before I can write for them for some reason. Mm-hmm. Like, it really influences how they talk, like how do they look. And so I do the initial concept art, and then I'll start working on the script. And once I've got scripted concept art, I put those in a Google Drive and I start sending it out to the people I want to voice act in, or I want to ask to voice act in it. Mm-hmm. And they'll give it a look, and they'll be like, this looks good. And then I'll be like, okay, let's schedule a voice session. We usually do those over like Zoom. Mm-hmm. And then we do a voice session where we go over all the lines. And I have to do that for every character, get everything recorded. And then once I've got all the audio clips, then I can start cutting the audio together kind of to nothing, just like making the conversations work and leaving blank space that I can extend later when I'm doing the boards, for non-talking parts.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then I do the boards, and then once the boards are all done, I usually send that to Patreon, because that's one of the things I promise on Patreon is people see the boards. And so I kind of wait to see what people think of the boards, and then I start animating. That's the different part, depending on what's the style, what's the process, but.
When you say that, like, you kind of wait a little bit to see what people think of the boards, have you ever changed anything from your boards based on the feedback you got from your patrons?
I actually don't think so, but it's usually positive feedback. I mean, I feel like it'd be kind of, I don't know. I rarely get a patron being like, this sucks, what are you doing? Like, that would be kind of wild, but.
Yeah, well, people like
so
having
funny.
Opinions. That's great, though. Would you ever, like, go into like a industry studio job if it were offered to you, or are you totally happy where you are?
I'm very happy with where I am. I try to avoid any sort of like freelance gigs or industry things if I can.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're making it work, which is really hard, and you've built that audience over many years, so it shows. Something that we like to ask is like, how do you deal with creative block, and what does it look like for you?
That is a good question. Let me think on that. I think what I have to do if I'm like just really struggling to work on the animation, I'm like kind of in the midpoint slump or even the early slump. There's a very distinct early slump. What usually I do is I start making myself work for specific hours, where it's like, okay, you need to work for this amount of time and just do something, get something done to get it moving forward. And I'll do that like day after day until the excitement's back and I can start just working on it, when I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. I feel like that's something that I also feel like, I don't know, I'm just kind of, I have like a webcomic I'm trying to make, and sometimes I like get to a point where I'm like, this sucks. Everything sucks. I should just give up. And then I just realize like, if I just kind of push a little harder, and then like you said, then like it becomes fun again after like going over that like hump.
Yeah. You mentioned like the slump. What are your like favorite and least favorite parts of your pipeline?
That's hard to say. I there's like no element that I would designate to someone else or throw away or like get rid of, because I enjoy every part of it to some degree. Mm-hmm. I like boarding, and it's important to me, that I'm there kind of working on the boards, but it's not my favorite part at all. I'm much happier when they're done.
Sure.
Which I think makes sense because that's the biggest decision-making point. Like, you're using your brain so hard to just like figure out, okay, next shot. Oh my God, next shot. Oh, another shot. And like, once that part's done, everything's way easier. But
I agree. I feel like, yeah, for me, when I'm like doing the roughs for the boards, it's just like, oh boy. But then like doing the cleanup or anything that's like similar to cleanup, or you can listen to podcasts at the same time. That's the best.
That is huge. I will even try to do podcasts while I'm boarding just because I'm so bored. I mean, bored.
I feel you.
But it's not possible. I mean, it's sort of, it's so hard. It's just like I'm like I can't draw and listen.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like it's just impossible to get the ideas because like you're saying, it's like decision making. It is. You need all of your brain like available. Like I've tried. Like the most I can do is music, but I can only do music that is either extremely repetitive, so that like my brain is just like
can tune it out.
Yeah, or something, or one of those like lo-fi kind of like chill beats. Kinda. Yeah, those are the only soundtrack to boards.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
What kind of stuff do you like to put on when you're like in the busy work stage, when like the decision making is over?
Yeah. I flip between. In the olden days, it was almost exclusively podcasts. It was a lot of Bim Bam, my brother and me. It was a lot of war study of old time, and I eventually ran out. Like, I mean, I'm all caught up on both of those now. And, like, a lot of the podcasts I listen to, I'm caught up. And so I think it was only for Yajima I switched to audiobooks.
Oh, nice. What kind?
Anything I get my hands on that seems fun. I'll, like, start a bunch of audiobooks and be like, nah, not this one. Nah, not this one. Because I want a specific type of person reading it, or a specific,
Right.
They have to do the voices in a way I like, or I'm just like, I don't want this.
Yeah.
Nice.
When it gets too cringy, it's like,
yeah, if they're trying too hard, then it's no good. And if they're not trying at all to like do voices, then it's like,
Yeah, I feel you. I feel like I when I was wondering about like what kind, I was wondering, do you listen to fiction or nonfiction?
Oh, always fiction. I'm not interested in nonfiction.
Yeah.
This is where we differ.
Do you like nonfiction?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of nonfiction. It's easier for me to follow than fiction. Sometimes can be a little bit hard.
Yeah,
it is hard to follow, but it's like, it doesn't matter to me because I don't really care. I'm just like, I'll just tune out at this part. It doesn't matter. I just need the audio.
Right. It's just
there's something to like kind of keep your like, yeah. Because there's like something that I have always thought is like, as a kid, when I was in school, so you're like sitting there listening to a teacher talk for a long time, and you're not really doing anything during that time. So I would always draw, and I think for me, like listening to nonfiction or any kind of podcast that is kind of like, I don't know, true crime, or like any kind of podcast that is like a story, but also a lot of facts, is like the best thing for me to listen to, because it like occupies like exactly the right part of my brain, and I can just draw. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like almost like there's one part that needs to be kept busy is the part that needs to listen to something, I don't know, factual.
Yeah, it's just different brains wired differently. I've never tried audiobooks. I have a hard time. I would feel bad that I'm not paying attention. I think I would immediately just be like, oh no, I missed this whole, and I do that when I'm reading, even where I'll like miss a whole page and I'm like, well, I was not paying attention. I gotta go back.
See, I'm the same way in that I'm very bad at reading, but I went a different route in that I just stopped respecting books. I'm like, I don't like you. I don't care about
Shunned.
you. And so, like, if I'm listening to an audiobook and I miss a part, I'm like, good.
That's what you fucking
Go
get.
Away.
Be better. Have pictures, God.
Yeah, be more entertaining. Be a cartoon.
Be a cartoon already.
I firmly believe most books would have been better and easier to make as cartoons, because writing takes too long.
That's true. That's true. Writing's hard. Draw a picture that's done. picture's worth 1,000 words.
Do you ever like listen or watch a show while you work?
I've done that in the past, but it doesn't really stick for me. There was a period when I was doing freelance, which I found especially grueling compared to original stuff. I would put on like Frasier in the background, and it just doesn't really stick for me because I end up missing a lot of it. And it ends up being like, this is basically a podcast with a visual element that I can't see because I'm not looking at it. So I should just listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
That's very true. I mean, there's like a couple of shows that I kind of consider also to be like shows that you don't really have to watch, which is kind of sad, but also it's like, you know, but the writing is so good that it's like, it's okay. Like,
we have a lot of questions and they're all great. At Finchykins asked, do you have a cartoon or animated show or movie from growing up that just really sits in your heart? Same, but as an adult.
I already said SpongeBob. It's really SpongeBob. It's 100% SpongeBob.
Always SpongeBob.
I'm obsessed with SpongeBob. I mean, I had like a How to Draw SpongeBob book, and I would draw all the characters over, and we're trying to get them right. Mm-hmm. And I think about it a lot.
That's so great. I didn't know that. Like, it's so funny because like I could tell that like your work has a like strong element of cartoon to it, but I never thought SpongeBob.
Yeah, I don't think it looks a ton like SpongeBob and now. I think it did when I was a kid, but once the anime influence from like One Piece got in there, I think it kind of changed the look. But
yeah, from at Cereal Plants? What's your favorite project you have worked on? It's like picking. It's
almost always the latest one, but every new project, I'm like, I go into it being like, this one's going to be, you know, it might be a bit of a letdown, but, you know, it's time to cool down. And then once I start working on it, I'm like, no, this is not only the best one I've done, but it's my favorite. And then it's done, and I'm like, the next one. And I'm like, the next one, the best one, and my favorite.
Yeah. Well, you know, you've learned, you've absorbed knowledge, probably, and the best is always the most recent. From at Sean Online Free. Have you found YouTube to be the best way to distribute your shorts? Have you ever tried submitting to film festivals?
100% YouTube. I'm not really interested in the film festivals thing. I think YouTube is the way to go. Because I think nothing... Well, if your goal is to be able to make a living off your indie animation, nothing matters more than getting eyes on it. And, like, you're not going to get as many eyes on if you submit to a festival. In fact, you'll distinctly won't. Putting on YouTube is the way to get people to see it. And other social media, but like I think of YouTube as like the home base of all the cartoons. Even if I put them on Twitter and Instagram, they kind of live on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like everything you post on Twitter gets like a huge amount of response, and so I'm curious if like if those numbers end up kind of, you know, informing those decisions or not. But you usually point people towards YouTube, right? Yeah,
I think with Yajima, I point people to YouTube because it doesn't fit on Twitter, and I want people to see the whole thing.
Right.
But like with a lot of my older stuff, I would put the whole thing on Twitter, and I don't even think I'd link to the YouTube version because I knew people wouldn't really care. Like if they've already seen the whole thing, then they're satisfied. But
yeah, the earlier stuff was definitely like bite sized. It was, I think, easier just keep it on whatever social media. But man, your shorts keep getting longer.
They do.
You're gonna make a full 20-minute thing, aren't you?
Sorry, I'm okay.
Let's see. From at Drunken Fix, and I'm a big fan first and foremost. Question is, what inspires your comedy? It's very unique and fresh.
Okay, so like nowadays, my comedy is very inspired by my peers, and a lot of whom I've had the wonder to work with, like Chris Fleming. Again, like the McElroy brothers, the Worst Idea of Old Time host Tim Batt and Guy Montgomery are really, really funny. I love their work, and I got to work with them on Big Top Burger. A big fan of Indiana Mayor Joni Phillips, who's a friend of mine. She's very funny. Yeah, and as well as Iconography, which is a wonderful podcast, and that I got to work with some of the hosts of that in Big Top Burger.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel like whatever thing you're watching the most, like personally, like I'll get really into some personality online and I start absorbing a lot of their mannerisms and the way they like joke and everything. And for a period of time, it's like, that's all I'm referencing. Does that happen to you?
I would say less now, maybe more when I was younger, but it happens sometimes.
Sure. From at Buddy from Earth. How did you start making your first short, and do you have any tips for students who want to be indie like you?
My first short? I'm not even sure which one that would be. That would be pretty old. And tips for being indie?
Yeah, I guess maybe we can frame it or structure it as like if somebody was hoping to become like a just a indie animator full time, what kind of advice would you give somebody like that?
I'm not sure. I guess. I mean, you have to start putting out work would be the big thing.
No, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And the work needs to be something you can finish. I think is big.
That's
so
huge.
Don't do anything ambitious. At least at first, definitely don't do anything ambitious.
Because I think like the question kind of comes from a place of like people who want to go into animation kind of think, all right, like how can I get a job and like industry and yada, yada, yada. And then they start to see people like you or other animators on YouTube and seeing like, well, that could be a career being indie. And I think they just don't really know kind of, because it is true. Like we kind of see you and all the other YouTube animators and it looks like to someone that doesn't know your life or any of you guys personally, it's like, it looks like you've always kind of been successful, right? For someone who doesn't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I guess the question kind of also is like, how much work would you say goes into going indie, and like how long kind of did it take you for you to be like self-sufficient?
I mean, it took me years and years and years, but I didn't really have a plan, and I wasn't really trying to go indie. I think that just it slowly happened. Mm-hmm. I mainly did freelance animation for years, and anytime there was a break between freelance gigs, and I wasn't looking for another one, I would try and put out a quick animation. I'm not sure how I would do that different or advise other people to do it different. Definitely, if you're trying to go indie, you got to make sure you've got some work to put out, something to show people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It helps to do things. From at Flippy Super, could you see yourself directing a whole a cartoon series with a whole crew, or do you prefer working independently?
I definitely prefer working independent, especially at this point. I think earlier on, this was more a means to an end. Mm-hmm. But then there were some certain indie works that came out that like changed my whole viewpoint, and I was like, no, this is the only thing I want to do. I don't want to work on a big production.
Yeah. Do you mean you saw other people's work?
Yes. Yes.
Well, can you give some examples?
Folks, it was Jack Black's Post-Apocalypto. Now listen. Okay, so when Jack Black made Post-Apocalypto, it changed the world.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My friends won't stop making fun of me because I keep talking about Post-Apocalypto for years now. For people who don't know, this is a feature-length indie animated film that Jack Black made. He drew the whole thing with markers, and then I think a friend of his colored it in the computer. They scanned it and colored it. And it's not super animated in terms of frames. It's a lot of, still drawings, but there's a lot of emotion carried through the pose and stuff. And it's all voice acted by Jack and Kyle Gass of Tenacious D. And it's to promote their album Post-Apocalypto. And when I saw this film, it broke my brain because I was like, Jack Black of all people, he could probably afford to pay other people to draw this.
Yeah, definitely.
But he just decided to do it himself. And it's like, it's 100 times better because of it. Like it could only exist this way because he made it himself. And I'm like, this is genius. This is perfect. This is ideal content. This is what I want to be making.
That's interesting.
That is so great. Oh my gosh.
Post-Apocalypto.
Yeah.
Well, and I should shout out more indie animators. Another big one, which I was way into as a teenager. I'm not super caught up, but Rat Boy Genius by Ryan Doran, I was a huge fan of. It's a completely indie animated by this music teacher. He's a music teacher, but he makes this CGI in Blender kind of for kids TV series called Rat Boy Genius in his free time. And it's just incredibly impressive that he makes it himself, and I really, really like it. Yeah, I'm blanking on other examples, but that's some.
I got to see Tenacious D in that Post-Apocalypto tour, and they just played.
Oh my gosh!
They played the whole thing. Like they had like a big screen in front of them, and it would kind of like go away when they would play a song. And yeah, dude, I didn't know that he drew it all. I just thought that
I didn't know that either.
I thought he just got somebody else. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit? That changes it for me because I thought he hired somebody to do that.
No, that's the most amazing part. And I think he did it, while working on Jumanji and stuff. I think it took him like a year or something to work on the whole thing.
Man.
Well, and his full story is he and Kyle wanted to make another film. Since, after Pick of Destiny, it's been like over a decade or whatever. And they were like, we want to do another animated film, or, our first animated film, to promote Post-Apocalypto. Or maybe not to promote. I don't know if they'd made the album yet, but they were like, we want to make this animated film. We'll pitch it to Netflix. So he went to Netflix. It's just like, it's a very improvised film. You guys down? And they were like, no. And he's like, oh, okay. Aww. And he like pitched it to some other people. They're like, no. Which is funny now because like you hear that. It's like, it's Jack Black. Why are you saying no to an animated film by Jack Black? And then you watch Post-Apocalypto and it's like, oh, yeah, they wouldn't want to do this. No. This is very R-rated. Yeah. It's like deeply R-rated.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. I was watching it and just like, what the hell is this? I was looking forward to like Pick a Destiny. So they did play the classics too, but it was a long stretch of just Post-Apocalypto. We have a question from @OreoZima. What motivated you to be a champion for clowns? P.S. I'm always blown away by how good your original music is. More like Wire and Set on You, please, which I agree.
Oh, thank you. The clown thing mainly came from a specific year. Well, okay. It came a bit from my childhood because I really liked Tim Curry's Pennywise, and I did a ton of fan art of Tim Curry's Pennywise. He almost became an original character for me. Mm-hmm. Like I would like do comics with him and stuff. And he wasn't evil like Tim Curry's Pennywise. It was like a nice version where he was kind of chill. And so I liked him a lot as a kid. And then when I was trying to come up with ideas for shorts, I was like, oh, I should do something with a clown in it or Pennywise or something like that, because that was something I used to like. And then I was in this period where I wasn't putting out any work, but I was trying to come up with ideas over and over and over. And so every idea I was like, well, I guess I'll put a clown in this one because I haven't made anything with a clown in it yet. And now I'm in a weird spot where all of those ideas from that one year kind of are finally reaching the surface. And so it looks like it's just old clowns, but it's like, that's just because at that time I hadn't put out anything with clowns. So it was like every new idea, I'm like, I could put a clown in this. I don't know. None of these are out yet, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
But now it's like everything has clowns in it. It's wild.
Yeah, you become known for the clowns. I've seen people saying that like you've converted them from being afraid of clowns into loving them now, which I think is that's power. You did it. So from @EricPlaysBass, what kind of effects, pedals, VSTs, whatever do you rely on and or have been enjoying lately? You have a cool bass tone in general, especially for the Big Top Burger intro.
Thank you. The only effects pedal I have is a wah-wah pedal, which I only used on Captain Miyajima because I wanted that 70s wah-wah vibe. I don't own any other effects pedals. I do want to get some, but my whole bass sound is direct input, and then I do effects in like with plugins. I do plugins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're really good at producing your music. Like it sounds really professional. I was straight up just listening to Wire for a while. it's a jam, man.
Thank you. That one's wild. But
somebody, I think it was Joe Sparrow, had said that like he had watched the short and was trying to find the song like that you used, and then realized that it was just the song that you made. And I had that same reaction at first.
I try to credit anytime I use something that I haven't made myself, and I think my followers are catching on to that because I'll see people in the comments going like, "What's the song?" and someone will be like, "Well, I don't see a credit for it, so it's probably by Ian."
It's probably worthy. @iGeneZ1 said, "You're a really well-known artist, so does it ever get overwhelming when making an animation? Like scared of others' judgment, or are you chill about that? And if past you ever imagined you'd do what you do now, or did you think you'd be doing something else career-wise?"
I guess it depends how far in the past I'm going. Like, as a kid, I remember having a distinct memory of watching Adventure Time and being like, I want to be an animator, but like, like an in-betweener. Like, I want to be kind of like a cog in the machine of the pipeline, and I want to work on something like Adventure Time. I remember wanting to do that. And then when I finally got to do that via freelance, I was like, oh, this is fun for the first week, and then you get kind of depressed. But and the other question, I do. I have a lot of anxiety about my animations all the time, and I hyperanalyze them to death and back. I hope it doesn't show, but like,
no, I don't think it does.
It's an incredibly stressful process.
Yeah, no, it doesn't show, but I think every artist can relate that it's like...
Yeah, I mean, you're working on this thing for so long, you put more thought into it than I think anyone watching it will ever think about it. Like, because you're thinking about it for hours and hours and hours, days and weeks. Your brain breaks and you've hyperanalyzed it to death.
Well, it's like you were talking about the slump, the early slump, and there's that like graph, where it's like, this is the best thing ever, and then it plummets down to like, I hate everything I've ever done, and then at the end it's like, this is okay. I think that's how everyone feels with any project.
It's so true. I feel like, I don't know. Do you feel like it's easy to forget about all these like different stages of like anxiety as well? Sometimes when I'm like in the like moment, I'm like, this is great, like this will never go bad, and then fast forward.
I do forget how bad it is on posting day, because posting day is like, I can never sleep. It's the most anxiety imaginable. Like my brain's gonna explode, and I always forget that. I'm always, because like 2 days before posting day, when I'm finishing it up, I'm just excited. I'm like, oh, it's almost done. How great! And then posting day comes around, and I'm like,
Do you like click on send without looking at the screen?
That I've done that before, and it was a mistake.
Oh no!
In free Apple, I hope nobody noticed, but there's an error in the credits. There's 2 errors in the credits actually, which I think I would have spotted if I'd watched it one more time.
Right.
But now they haunt me. Every time I watch the credits, I'm like, oh, I wish I just like watched the whole thing one more time and made sure I'd fix the credits before putting it on YouTube. But
how do you decide when to post? Like, is there some kind of...
when it's done.
When it's done.
Always when it's done.
Well, I was wondering if maybe there is, if you found through maybe some analytics or something, if there is like the right day or time, or is it just kind of when it's done?
I don't focus on that at all. I don't think about the thumbnail or the title or about like the analytics stuff. Because my belief is, if the short's good, it'll spread through word of mouth no matter what.
Right.
YouTube doesn't need to promote it if it's good.
Yeah, the work speaks for itself, for sure. From @ZayWorks. What is a secret or less noticeable thing you've noticed in Rankin Bass animation that you try to replicate for an authentic feeling?
I could answer this question for 1 hour straight, but I'll try and pick one specific thing. Oh, okay. This is like the most obvious thing that I don't see other people talk about, and I see a lot of people talking about kind of getting this wrong, where they're like, "Oh, Rankin Bass, it's a great example of claymation," and it kind of gets under my skin a little, because I'm like, it's not claymation, it's puppetmation, and more than just puppetmation, like beyond like Nightmare Before Christmas or Coraline, it's even more distinct than that, because in those, like the heads are like, they're sculpted out of clay and then they're cast and stuff like that. The heads of Rankin Bass, to the best of my knowledge and to all of my research, are made of wood. They're one-off heads. Carved out of wood. They don't have multiple versions of that, or they don't have backups, because the productions were so cheap and just get it done. And so they would sculpt the heads out of wood and then put them on the bodies, which looks like they're made of like foam rubber, or like it's like probably foam rubber over wire. I don't think they had armatures, because again, very, very cheap. And that's the whole joy for me. That's why I love that style so much. That they're like little wooden dolls. They're like I don't know. They're all like Pinocchio. It's very odd, and I think it's visually wonderful.
So you must have done a lot of research, like just on the behind the scenes aspects of it, huh?
Yes. Then there's not a lot to find, unfortunately. Rankin Bass is not very well documented. Yeah. It was all animated in Japan by a studio called Studio Mom, I think, and if there is documentation, it's probably in Japanese, and I can't seem to find it. And even then, I'm not sure there is. I don't think people cared what they were doing at the time. They're just like, whatever, it's these stop motion things.
Did you were you just looking up Rankin Bass, like all that like insider info as a hobby and like because you like the style, or also as because you wanted to kind of replicate?
All of that was for the imitation. Before that, I was just like, I like the way this looks, but I didn't think about it very hard. And then when it came time to imitate it, I was like, oh, I need to know everything. I need to know everything imaginable about how these are constructed. I need like Blu-ray versions. I need the close-ups. I need to know. because I think it's important.
Yeah, because like that was also the thing that I was and a lot of the questions that we got also about Yajima were like how good the short was at replicating that aesthetic. And I was gonna like I mean I knew you were working with Blender, and it says like literally the second frame is like created with Blender, but it is like it's so crazy. It looks so good. And how like how much of your research did you use to kind of create that look? Like would you say like 100% of everything you researched, or?
I probably at 100%, and it certainly builds on my previous shorts in that style and everything I've kind of learned from working on those.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of like like Yajima is kind of like just the like pinnacle of all the like experimentation and research that you've done this whole time.
Even working on Yajima, I'll say, I mean, I won't say too much about it, but I was like, this is a practice run for the big one, but I won't talk about the big one.
Well, buckle up, everyone.
Yeah.
Full feature-length movie. Rankin Bass style.
I was working with, how did you work with the voice actors? Do you speak Japanese at all?
I do not at all. It was a wild process. It was just that I'd been friends for like a year with, his name is Hanai Chihaya, and he leads this indie dubbing group called Rashame. And he had reached out, a year ago after Big Top Burger came out, and he was like, hey, we've done a dub of it into Japanese, check it out. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is like really high quality. Wow. This is cool. And he ended up dubbing the whole season, him and his group. And then we were kind of going back and forth. He was like, I'd love if you made a channel that's kind of dedicated to just dubs, and so they could get more of an audience. And so started putting the dubs there, but like nobody was watching them, or like it was all like, English speaking people kind of watching for the novelty. And he's like, they're not really getting promoted here in Japan. And I'm like, huh. And I had an idea. My idea was like, if I did a main channel animation that's originally in Japanese and not a dub, maybe that would get promoted, and then maybe people would check out more of your dubs. And he's like, that's a cool idea. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to come up with something. And that's how I came up with Captain Yajima.
That is so cool. I love that. That's
awesome.
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really
talented. The process for recording was wild, because I wrote the script in English. I sent it to him and was like, do you think this will work? Can you translate things? This will work. And I'm like, okay. And then I recorded me reading through the script in English, doing all the voices myself, and like trying to give the line deliveries I had in mind, because I couldn't actually be there for the voice sessions. I mean, it wouldn't have made any sense to me. So I just wanted like a general reference of like, hey, these are the kind of tones of these lines. And then I just handed that off to him, and him and his translator translated it, and then they worked with, I think, remotely with all the voice actors and got it recorded, and then just sent me the recording. And I think there was one revision where he was like, if you want the voices slightly different, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe change that voice slightly, like the kind of tone. And then that was it. On one side of the there was one final wrinkle, which is after he sent me that audio, he was like, hey, me and the voice actors would love to get the finished animation and dub it again. And I was like, huh, why would they want to dub it again? It took me a second. I'm like, oh, right. In Japan, they always voice act to finished animation. They don't, or not necessarily finished, but they don't do the voice acting to nothing. That's not how the practice works at all. They just never do that. The animation's always done to silence, and then they voice act over it. And that's like what the whole skill is about, is being able to lip sync to the finished animation.
That's so interesting.
I remember hearing this as like a teen, but I forgot it because it's so wild and so different from how we do it in America.
Right.
And so I kept that in mind the whole time, and I ended up sending, the finished thing, and they redubbed a couple lines to kind of change the tone to match the animation better. And then I put it on.
That's such a great final step. Yeah, I would have never even thought about it.
It was wild.
They're really talented. Yeah, I first heard about them because they did a fan dub of my short of Planet Panic, and I
really
yeah
I didn't know this. I'll have to watch it.
They got taken down because it's owned by Nick, I guess, and
right,
and that was a bummer. I talked to them a little bit about it, and it's like, and they asked me like, can you do anything? I'm like, I wish I could, like I can't. But it was really good. They nailed it. And with your short too, like they're awesome.
They're very talented, and I'm really glad to help out Chiaya, because I asked him, like, why are you doing what is this about?
Why are you doing
and
this?
he explained it to me. It was very cool. He was like, I used to be an industry voice actor.
Oh.
And I kind of hated it. It was a really kind of toxic environment, and was all based on, like, you didn't have a lot of agency as a voice actor. It was about, like, the big studio that you worked for. They would kind of, like, pick out the roles for you. And he just thought it kind of sucked, and he was like, I'd love if there was a more independent, more, like, voice actor empowered studio. And so he just made one. And his idea to kind of get it off the ground was dubbing YouTube videos. It's such a cool idea, and I was just like, I really want to just support this in general, because I really like it.
Yeah, there's definitely a need for it, and it, you know, like in the case of mine, it sucks that studios will punish it essentially.
Yeah, they took it down. That's a bummer.
It's a bummer, and but I wish I had saved it or something. But I'm sure they have the file. From @CaptainAravian. What is your character design process? Do you go through several iterations of a design before settling on a final one, or are your first sketches of a character similar to the final ones we see in your animation?
Sometimes the first sketches are the final ones you see. Right. Sometimes it's one drawing, and then that's it. I just go off that one drawing. And other characters, there's a struggle where it's like, I'll do a drawing, I'll be like, that's not it. And I'll change it, and I'll go, that's not it. And I'll change it. It really depends on the character. Like with Cat Miyajima, I think I did one drawing. I think it's on my Twitter. It's the first drawing I did of Yajima and Genius, and that was the blueprint. I did that one drawing. I'm like, that's it. Mm-hmm. That's it. And then Zogai did a drawing, and I was like, it's not it. And then I did a second drawing. I was like, there it is.
Yeah. Well, she's got more detail to her, too. Like, it's a very specific thing you're...
It's a very, very... I did not realize how complicated the design was until I saw people drawing a lot of wonderful fan art, but I started noticing, like, they didn't get that detail right. And I'm like, there's a lot of little weird details out there.
Well,
kind of went overboard.
It's a puppet, right? They just put a bunch of shit on her, and they didn't... Yeah, I think it works. I get it. How, from @FeverDream, how do you get such different ideas for your projects, or what is the hardest part of the creative process for you?
I get the hardest part, I guess, is really just the very beginning of, like, what should I make? Like, what is the new idea? What is this? And once I've got, like, the basis for it, then it's much easier to kind of write it and then design it and then animate it. But getting that first idea of, like, it could be anything, it could be anything. So it's very open-ended.
From @MissLanag, how do you manage to stay motivated to finish your shorts, since they take a lot of work? Any tips?
I mean, the honest answer is I usually don't stay motivated, right. And I enter huge slumps, and it takes a lot to get it finished. But staying motivated, I think you just have to be aware when you need to power through, when it stops being kind of fun and you have to power through to get to the fun part. But
well, you have multiple things happening at once, right? So do you ever kind of hop over to a different part of the process to get out of that, like, burnout?
I really wish I did that more, but I don't typically do that. I usually kind of get really stressed about, like, well, this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing, this one part. And so if I'm not doing that, then I'm wasting my time, which is not true or smart at all. I should switch gears and do something else, but I don't typically do that.
I think that one, we kind of talked a little bit about how you worked with the voice actors for Yajima, but I kind of want to try to ask this question from @BootyBill. What's the process of getting in touch and working with the voice actors? Is it enjoyable? Does it ever change the direction of the art/animation? That last part I think is interesting.
It totally does, and it is enjoyable. It definitely depends on the short and, like, how the process goes. Like, there's a couple times where I'll have someone in mind who I don't necessarily know, but I'll be like, maybe I can get this person. And if I can't, reach out to them successfully, then I'll be like, okay, this is trouble. I gotta switch gears now and come up with something else.
Has that happened a lot?
It's happened a couple times. In Big Top Burger, there was a guest I wanted to get who I couldn't get, and I had to shift gears and think of a different guest. But it you know, I'm still happy with the end product. It's just like I have to change my idea of how it goes. In general, though, I love working with the voice actors, and in terms of like finding people, it's almost always just someone I know who I'm imagining for this part. I'm like, I think they would be perfect, and then I hit them up on like Twitter or something. I'm like, you want to do this? They're like, sure, and then they record for it, and it does change the character a lot of the time. Yeah, the character does change. One interesting one is Professor Genius, because when I read Professor Genius's lines, I imagined them all very, very thoughtful and dry. He was very much like Spock. He was just like, interesting. Oh yes. And even his delivery of the line where he's watching the Space Metal performance, the way I originally read it was, yes, Space Metal. And he's like, he's like nodding. And it's a very different character. And I think, you know, Chiaya voices Professor Genius. He voices a lot of the characters that he's amazing. And he brought this joy, this naivete to the character. He's like, ooh, Space Metal. And I really like that. I think it makes the character a lot even more lovable. Just that he's a genius, but he's like kind of socially naive.
No, it's very charming. From @ThoughtsInflit. If money and time were no issue, what kind of video game would you like to make? What's the story, the mechanics, who are we playing as?
So, me and my brother are making a game.
Hell
the demo's coming out soon.
Oh, you heard it here.
It's called The Witching Hour. He's mostly doing the game making. I do concept art and like the character designs, and I'm doing the music, and I help with writing, but he's doing the actual like modeling and the programming and stuff like that. And it's all like his original idea. And it's in a Banjo-Kazooie style, like N64, you know, kind of blocky.
Yeah.
And so for the music, I'm doing, you know, I'm trying to do Grant Kirkhope. I'm doing like the sound fonts and stuff, or not sound fonts, but like the sampled little MIDI stuff. And it's a lot of fun. It's taken us a while to make it because he's busy with his job and I'm busy with animation stuff. But it's coming along. In terms of making a game myself, I don't think that's something I do. I did it a lot as a teen with Game Maker. I made a lot of games like side scrolls and stuff.
Yeah.
But yes.
What kind of games?
I made the anime fighting game Papa Rocks. That was with my middle brother, not two brothers, but. I made a game called Spider Game. That's a side scroller, and you play as Spider-Man, and it's just like a platformer puzzle game.
Oh yeah.
I don't really have ideas for video games though. Like, I know after I released Free Apple, I saw some people saying I'd love to play this as a game, and I was like, that would be kind of fun, but like I wouldn't want to make that. Like, to me, this is more fun that it's a short that looks like a game that like you kind of imagine the game, but it's an animated short at the end of the day.
Yeah, games are a pain in the ass to make. It's mostly technical hurdles.
It is.
I think with Free Apple though, what I really like was like you have this main character, like the character that you would be supposed to play, so like the little Prince King guy. Is so goofy. It's like, it's funny because, you know, when you play video games, usually you're supposed to be like the hero, and most of the time like protagonists are very serious. So I thought that was such a great, I don't know, it's so good. It's so
but on the topic of I was an earlier question, what short am I most proud of? I think Free Apple comes up a lot in my brain because I think the visual aesthetic is so different from anything I'd tried before, and it came out a lot better than I thought it would. I really had no idea how that was going to come out, and I'm very happy with the result. And I think Justin McElroy, who's like a hero of mine, gave this incredible dual performance as the king and the shopkeep, and it's like I'm very happy with, you know, my most recent shorts. I'm very excited about those, but Free Apple has a very special place in my heart.
For sure. That's a good one. Yeah, it's do you have any plans to do any other shorts that are like inspired by video games like that?
Yeah, I'm thinking of me and a friend are scheming up a possible like PS2 inspired kind of game, like
that's great.
Like a rhythm, what are those called? Rhythm games?
Sure, yeah.
Something like that. I don't know if that'll come to fruition, but it's like a rough plan.
Yeah, That sounds like a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
What kind of goals do you have going forward? Like, what are you hoping to accomplish?
Mainly just more of this would be my main goal. I'm kind of at the place I want to be. I just want to stay here.
Sure.
Are you ever worried that, like, I don't know, that it wouldn't last?
Honestly, I'm worried more about the opposite, that the momentum would go past me and it would become too big or something.
Yeah,
or like,
yeah.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
I'm really worried about. I'm trying to specifically avoid having it kind of get too big for me and stop being as indie.
Interesting.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense, actually. That makes a lot of sense, because then, like, if you become too valuable, people are going to try to buy you.
That always happens, yeah. I mean, you know, stick to your guns. It seems like you really know what you like doing and what you want to accomplish, so that's huge. Not get pulled in by big animation.
Yeah. I kind of like this question from @conduit_7. How do you balance health, mental and physical, and making awesome animations?
I don't. I have very bad physical health. Some of it is kind of out of my hands. I need to like see a doctor, but some of it is on me, and I need to like exercise more and stuff. But it's I would say it's very, very difficult. I've been gripping with that recently, specifically, that it's just like, this is not good for my body at all. Like, I spend all day looking at the screen because I have to. Like, you have to work on the shorts, and like, I can't make the shorts on anything but a screen.
Yeah.
I could make stuff better. I could make, I know you're supposed to have like your laptop, not your laptop, your keyboard is supposed to be like at a certain level. And I think mine's too high. And so it's probably bad for my arms, like little stuff like that could probably be improved. But mainly I just need the hobbies, and I need to get outside more.
I was going to ask, would you ever consider doing something like Post-Apocalyptic from Jack Black? Like, because he did that on paper, right? Or like, did he do it on
Yes,
Sharpie?
he drew it on Sharpie and then scanned it in. I don't really, frankly, I don't really like physical media, really. I much prefer the computer in every way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I, especially over quarantine, like staring at a screen for hours at a time has been fucking me up. It's like, it's hard. So is there anything else, V, that you wanted to ask? I'm looking through all the questions.
I mean, I would want to ask all of them, but a lot of them are like similar.
I think we've covered a lot of ground, yeah.
And this one's a fun one. We can have a fun question from @cake_lover. There's 2 zeros at the beginning and 2 zeros at the end. Would you fight a horse-sized duck or multiple duck-sized horses?
I prefer not to fight either.
Impossible. You have to pick one.
I have to fight one. Okay.
No, I like that answer. The like Undertale answer.
That's the good answer. Yeah, but
yeah.
I think I would give up and let it kill me. Probably that would be what I do.
Just roll over and take it.
Yeah, just roll over and let it trample me.
Okay, I like that answer. Well, is there anything you want to plug while you're on here?
No.
That's it. We've been talking only about your animation, as I think people get the point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's the end of this creative block. Thanks to Worthikids for being our guest and sharing his story.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks to our listeners. Follow us on Twitter. It's @creativeblock, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to my sister Clemens for editing the podcast.
Please subscribe to the channel if you love our content. I've been your host, Gene.
And I was V. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Bye.